as a co-host? Okay, now.
Yes. So welcome back. This is, I understand, week 7 of human resource management with our class. This week, we are focused on your research. Everybody has signed up for a project to manage 1 week, and you are supposed to sign up for a term project, and that was done up before week 3. Today, you're supposed to show the developments that you have. Some people will just show a few of the articles they have and talk about the plans. Please make sure everybody discusses the plans they have to complete their research, what type of references they will be doing throughout their research, specifically how they will contact the company, what type of surveys or interactions you will have with the company, and talk about your grant activities. So with that said, Min-Soo Kim, I look forward to hearing from you.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My name is Min-Soo, and my teammates will be Maurice and Felix. And today we'll be presenting our progressive part paper. And our topic is competitor compensation structure study. So this is our contact information in the slide. So there is our phone number and our email in case it is needed for you guys to share if you guys find some kind of articles that is interesting to our topic. And this is our table of contents. I will be first talking about the definition and explaining about the compensation structure. And then Maurice and Felix will be sharing some articles that we found regarding to our research. And then we are going to share the next steps of our research. So, So to start with, compensation is, what is a compensation structure? So compensation is our extrinsic rewards the employees receive in exchange for their work inside of company. And the compensation structure is actually the salary, the money that is actually assigned to a employee that will usually reflect the amount and the value of the work to the company. So the higher the position or the performance of work, the more compensation the employee will get. It is usually under the responsibility of the human resource department for the creation and management of the compensation structure. But what is actually included in a compensation? It includes all kinds of payments, pays, which is the actual amount of money that cash that the employee will receive. Base wage and salary, which would be based on hourly, weekly, or monthly amount. The incentives, which would be the rewards offered, which would be in addition to the base wage that the employee receives. So it would be actually related more to the performance of the employee. So for example, if the usual wage is $1,000, the incentive would be if they achieve a certain financial, a certain goal or performance, a good performance in the company, they will get a bonus. Like it could be from any amount, like $100 as well. And then there's the benefits, which are the rewards the employees receive as a result of their employment and position in the organization. So for example, there are some benefits that would be including the use of private jet or the use of like providing housing and everything. What? Okay, I don't know where is it, but I don't know where is it in the middle of my screen, but okay. There are a few different types of compensation inside a company. There's the monetary incentives and the non-monetary incentives given to the employees. So for example, there are commissions, the overtime payment when they are working after hours, the usually work hours, the bonus and retirement package. And then there's the non-monetary incentives, which are given to it's some kind of benefits to the employees, where it's not actual cash that would be given to the employees. There's some indirectly form of giving benefits to them. So it will be like having medical insurance, which could be a full coverage insurance, or could be a half, or up to their family members as well. Sometimes the companies, they provide stock options to the employees. Is the stock options would be from the company that they work in. So it would make the employees work a little bit more harder, like have a good performance at work. So because their work will reflect the increase or decrease of the stock of the company. The leaves and some company perks, which would be like I said previously, the private jets, housing, travel expenses, and etc. But why is the compensation so important inside a company? It's because the compensation is actually used as a way to recruit and retain the key talents, and to give awards for high performance employees, to increase and maintain the employee satisfaction. This is because if the employees are not satisfied with the compensation they have in certain company, they will look for a company that have a much better compensation structure. So it would actually decrease the turnover rate of the company. And the compensation structure also encourages the good work performance and make employees to work to the best of their competencies, and also can provide the company a competitive market position advantage, because as I said before, people who are not satisfied, they will go, the key talents will be going to the companies they think they're paying enough for their talent. But there are some challenges that when managing a compensation structure in a company. This is because the human resource management, they have to create the best compensation structure that is ideal for that certain company, if it's IT, engineering, or retail. So this is because if the company is underpaying the employees, there would be a high turnover rate. The employees would be going to another company. However, if you also overpay your employees, they will be affecting the budget of your company. So it would not be effective in the long run. Now, Felix will continue talking about a few articles that we found.
First, I want to talk about the first article I found, and that was more to analyze the current state in other companies, industries, or where is it? The current state or the current standard in other companies, industries. And so I found an article about the compensation in Germany. That's also compared with the US state, and the key findings were like that 90% of the companies that are researched there are included in the DAX. That's like market share, like the biggest in Germany. And they have like 90% of them use variable short-term compensation structure, 70% uses stock options, and 80% use like pension, keep them in the compensation structure. And there were like diagram in the study about the different percentage of how much is the fixed compensation, how much is the variable compensation in the companies. And that's here shown in different. You see here the fixed compensation and the variable compensation. You see here the different percentage over the years. So at first it started up with like 36% for variable compensation. It's mostly for long-term goals or more like not the basic salary, more like stock options, etc. And also you can see on the right side multi-year bonuses, so it's more detailed. It's getting really more in option grants, and also the fixed compensation getting less and less in Germany, and same for US also. Here. I searched for also an international active business that's handling customers and selling products. So I used Audi as an example, and I used here for the corporate governance report. So that's available for every company in Germany because they're legally they have to publish this information at the payment of their executive, and there's also included the compensation structure. So I use the audio as an example because they have also a fixed remuneration. That means no performance indicator. That's the basic salary. But they also have long-term goals, long-term targets, and on the bottom left you can see near to the company regulations. They wanted to be leader in customer satisfaction and also measured using the customer satisfaction index. Also wanted to have high motivated and good employees, and also rise in sales and return. But they indicated this as long-term incentive targets. So here on the right side you can see salary of high executive managers. And here you can see the non-performance related remuneration and the performance related remuneration. So you can see that a lot of the performance related remuneration is higher than the rest of them. Then I also made some research about, I can't put it further. Okay, now. Also made some research about non-monetary incentives, because that's also what something was into, that you don't pay them, that you want to reward them with something other. So I found 3 good articles about that. First article is the influence of awards, the systematical substantial effects on the performance. They say here in this article that this refers to monetary awards, and they conclude that it should be highly used, but not only in the university when you get a diploma, or in the military if you do something good. You can do it certificates, trophies, pin or titles in the company, and it's motivate them for long term, not money for short term. They offer also unique opportunities for motivation long term, and that's more suited to employees to keep them motivated. The next article was about more cash, no cash, and mix. That means that they compared 3 different types of payment, cash motivated incentives, non-cash, and also a mixed form. Result of this study was that all have positive influences on the short-term analysis only, because they only could in this study for short-term. But this, the main result was that there's a gender gap between that. So genders also matters about that men had the highest performance with that, and they get money for that, monetary incentives, and women had the highest productivity when they had a non-monetary incentives. It's also quite interesting. And if you build up non-monetary incentives for a company. Third one was about non-monetary incentives in a company in Malaysia. So maybe I should also say the first article in Switzerland. The second one was in, I think it was in Germany, yes, yeah, in Germany, and the third one was in Malaysia. So it's international research what we did there. And the third one, they examined the relationship of non-monetary incentives, such as flexible working schedules, so more focused on work-life balance, and the conclusion of that was that they had a really good relationship to job performance. So they got more freedom to organize their life, the work and life, then they had a very good job performance. Now, where's it going to continue?
Yes, so in order to find possible improvement strategies, we compared the industry biggest competitor, Apple, and how they handle their employee compensation plan. And we found this proxy statement from Apple for 2020 provided by the SEC with an executive compensation program statement. And we found that the most valuable, the most important values for Apple are to motivate and reward exceptional performance, while also thinking about the size, the scope, and the success of the business at the same time. And we found that the main compensation plan is the long-term equity awards. It's either time-based or performance-based. Mostly it's like a combination of both. And it's rewarded with restricted stock units called RSUs and multi-year vesting schedules. And which is also super important. What we found is that they also have something called say on pay vote, where shareholders annually have the opportunity to cast an advisory on the compensation structure. So they can always improve. Exactly. And the next part, we have an example of the 2019 total compensation of Luca Mastri, who's the CFO officer at Apple at the moment. And what is really interesting to see is that the annual base salary is actually only 4% of the total compensation, while only 14% is cash and 86% is made by long-term equity rewards. So it actually supports what I just said before, which is stated in the proxy statement of the year 2020 as well. And it says that also like the total compensation only in stock rewards is over $21 million, which is insane. It's a lot. And yes, the income statement you can find like at the SEC. Basically every year they have to state it as well, like Felix also mentioned before. And then we come to the next part. We talked about the pros and cons of equity-based compensation because it's such a big part in Apple. And yeah, the one pro of that is the share of profits for the employees. It's a pro point because, for example, they get a high amount of dividends, or like it's a big cash flow every year. And then the second one is encouraging retention and performance, because for the employees, the value of own assets depend on their own performance, and their assets get way bigger if they also work a lot, if they improve their own performance a lot. And then the increase in cash flow is that the ability to conserve cash is there for the company to use it for other expenses instead of for the salary each year, so they can improve their cash flow. And then the fourth is the emotional attachment for the employees, because when the employees have stock in the company, they see themselves more as an owner, and they are more committed to the company than if they were then just with a normal job there and not with own money in the company. And then for the cons, it's mostly about giving up ownership. When you give away parts of the company for stocks, it's very spreaded and it's very hard to overview as well, and might take also risk. And then secondly, we also mentioned that the legal and tax complexities are very high. Like it's very difficult to meet necessary anti-fraud provisions and ensuring that it doesn't have to be registered under federal securities law. And it has multiple tax implications, obviously, because it's very difficult to handle all the different arguments as well, and it's very difficult to keep track of all changes. Like when somebody is retiring, somebody's leaving the company, it's very difficult to keep all of that in the accounts. And then we want to talk about our next steps of the research. So we want to contact Samsung regarding their current compensation structure in the company in order to also compare it with other companies except for Apple, or even go deeper into the topic with Apple and see what they do better, what they do worse, and to find some strategies. And based on our findings, we want to evaluate the current system in Samsung and do recommendations on the existing structure. Okay, thank you for listening. That was our proposal.
Okay. Do you guys have some information you'd like to share about your grant activity plans?
I don't think we did that yet because we didn't find that much information about the compensation structure in Samsung yet. So we first actually wanted to contact them. I'm not so sure.
Okay, so you're still waiting on that information. Let me ask the rest of the class if they have some comments. To be clear, the rest of the class share comments. This purpose is for you guys to be able to share your research, your problems, your challenges going forward. I have some comments I will give you after I hear some comments from some of your classmates. Felix, Minzu, would you guys like to manage the participative management and check your classmates' understanding of your research? What do they think of it? How do they review it? How do they evaluate you? What are their suggestions for change?
So should I ask someone to share their opinion?
Yes, please. You can try. It's a challenge.
Maybe Lara, or I don't know who to ask actually.
Sure, okay. You're given an opportunity to manage human resources of your colleagues. You're presenting proposals for compensation. I'm checking how well people understand it. What are their, I just saw somebody hand up. It was for a second, okay. Can you see that hand up?
I have a question for their presentation. Can I ask?
Sure. Sure.
Okay. I have a question about some like, can you like give some more examples about what determines the compensation structure of a company?
So what actually influence the compensation structure of a company will depend from internal and external factors. So for example, the internal factors would be regarding the budget of the company or the size of the company. But some external factors would be like Marisa, I think she explained about the regulations like tax laws and regulation about how much a company are allowed to give to a certain employee. Also the wage of the competitors. So that's why when doing a compensation structure, they do some compensation structure research. They hire, like they look for data to see which they would balance and see which would be the best structure to their company. So it's based not only inside the company, but also external factors.
Thank you.
Are you aware of any more specific details? That's a good question. I just want to help you. I will give you a brief comment, but you three, Marissa, Felix, Minsu, please continue to share some of your issues that you have. Ask some of your classmates maybe how they can help you with your issues. Then try to very clearly get a reliable feedback from your classmates about your research so far, including suggestions for change. This is a practice session. You can't mess it up unless you don't take advantage of how to improve, because the final is at the end of the semester. So while we wait for you to plan additional questions, let me just share. Usually, compensation is set by the CEO, almost directly by the CEO, including the CEO's pay. The CEO often says it's set by the board, but who controls the board? The CEO hires the board. The CEO can fire the board. There's a lot of interesting details there. If somebody in the board is antagonistic or they're against the CEO's plans, that person may not be renewed or invited back to be the board member. So many people say the CEO's pay and the pay throughout the company is basically determined by the CEO, what the CEO likes. However, companies say they have board members that conduct reviews of the market. Usually they don't say who exactly they survey, but they survey whatever firms are direct competitors, and at the same time, they survey the firms that have the highest pay packages, because that would help raise the packages for themselves. They are supposed to be thinking about the idea of how much profit they have and how they can share that for the stockholders. But a human interest is to take care of yourself. So the CEO often provides pay that is attractive to them. Could you tell the class what you think is the pay of Apple? I think you started talking about the pay of Apple's CFO, which was Luca, at $25 million. You said that was insane. Do you know what the pay for the CEO is? No? I'll just go ahead and tell you. Back in 2011, when Tim Cook was newer, his pay for the 1 year was $376 million. Those current shares are now worth more than $532 million at today's prices. They're actually increasing. Typically, the stock rate is 5 times base pay. But for CEOs, let me show you something. I'll share my screen. Something that I wanted to show you is here. Yes, this is an interesting video. I'm not going to show the volume, but it's talking about wealth inequality in America. And if you jump through it, it starts talking about the idea of how people think about pay. So you just said the CFO gets $25 million. If we have a typical division of pay around the world, have you guys seen this type of research? It initially came from Harvard, and it's been growing in popularity on the internet. Many companies are comparing their details. What it's saying is, many years ago, CEO's typical pay is 380 times. That was several years ago, and it is increasing. A lot of people are saying the typical CEO pay is more than 400 times the average pay, not the minimum pay. It's not 400 times the lowest paid worker. It's 400 times more than the average worker's pay. So
We can't hear you.
I think there's a
Investment call. China, you guys can't hear me?
now, yes.
Okay. So you're aware of that. Please check out those details. The other thing that I can show you is this one. So that's the video I was just showing you. Standard & Poor's, they have more results on this. This is directly related to your presentation today. Tim Cook, again, back in, well, many years ago, he had $378 million in pay in 2011. And then the next year, it was a 55% increase. So it might be interesting to check that. Other people like Larry Ellison is similar. He's been having more than $78 million in pay each year for many years. Now he's worth $41 billion, mostly just from CEO pay. So when you're talking about that, make sure you're aware that the CEO often sets that. They will say that boards set it, but the board is controlled by the CEO. And the board usually designs their research so that it reflects what is in the best interest of the CEO. If you're very lucky, the board may be different. What I would like you guys to notice when you're going through this is everything we're talking about the crazy high CEO pay, it's usually just a Western thing. For example, check what is the pay for CEOs in Korea. Check what is the pay for CEOs in Japan. It's much, much, much lower. The CEOs may be controlling companies which are about the same size, but the CEOs have a much more modest, more group-oriented pay structure. Something for you guys to note. Maybe with your connection with Denmark, you might want to check what are the CEOs in Denmark, like Maersk, what are their pay packages? So go ahead, now back and get some sort of evaluation from the rest of your classmates about your work. Marissa, Felix, Minsu.
Maybe we could get a feedback from Funita or yeah, Funita, is that right? Or it can be from, Funita is going to speak.
No comment, let's move on to next.
Yeah, you talk about
As time is money.
overpay of company, right? How the company get the overpay? If they get the overpay, how to do that?
Sorry, I didn't understand fully the question. So it's about when a company overpay?
Yes.
Could you repeat the question, please? Sorry.
At your presentation, it have the about overpay. Yes, I want to know if company have to get the overpay, how company to do that?
So actually overpaying the employee is not something that should be done, because it means that the company is paying much more than they are able to, which would be outside their actual budget. Like it could be inside the budget within that month, but with the long run, it could be, it would be affecting the financial situation of the company. So what I wanted to say is that it's really important for the company to have the best compensation structure that will best fit the company. So just, yeah, so that's what I meant. Because if you underpay your employees, a lot of employees will try to go to another company who will have the compensation as much as they value the work. But if you overpay it, it would be affecting the financial statement of the company.
Oh, and Minsu, I have one more thing to say. In history, in the previous, like uh for example, Naver, it was once not a big company, but it became a huge company in Korea. But at the first, they had not enough monies to pay for the employees, so they provide stock options instead of the money, I heard. And this will be also a good example. And you showed that the compensation motivates employees and increase the retention rate. And I saw the graph that the base compensation was low, but more of what's that bonuses. Those were higher than the normal compensation, normal wages. So I think the stock option things will include into those categories. So yeah, maybe this will be helpful.
Okay, so the reference was to note Naver is a popular company in Korea. It's a high-tech company. Some people say it might be similar to Apple. They started their organization not with stock option, actually. They started by paying staff, but they ran out of money. And after they ran out of money, then they started paying their staff with stock options in order to try to keep the staff. Some of my friends were working for that company at the time. Most of the employees, soon as the company ran out of money at the beginning, most employees left. The few that stayed for many, many months. I believe it was more than a year. They continued to work without pay, just with stock. But when the company started to do well, every one of those people became multimillionaires. Unfortunately, my friend that was working for the company died of brain cancer right after they became a multimillionaire. So life is short. Thank you for that comment. Any other comments from Marissa, Felix, Minsu, from your peers before we move on to the next presentation?
Could it be hidden or hidden or is it content?
Human resource management is kind of hard, isn't it? Everybody, you should be aware that Minsu and Felix and Marissa can give you guys points if you talk. So you have compensation ability and people are still not participating. They're not working for you. How can you overcome that? Again, make sure that you are aware that overall CEO pay in the US is much more than 300 times the average worker's pay. And make sure you check comparison of CEO pay or compensation systems in the US compared to Japan, which is much, much different. And it's very different from other countries. I'd be interested in comparing it to Korea and China or Vietnam or Denmark, for example. Also, make sure that you check, what about a cooperative? What is the compensation scheme usually in a cooperative? You talked about compensation in a multinational corporation like Apple. There are other types of companies. For example, a sole proprietorship just pays himself whatever he wants. And a cooperative can be a very large corporation like Apple. Are you aware of how compensation is set there? That's a big sort of competitor to your proposal so far, what you've mentioned? Do you know what a cooperative is, Felix or Marissa? Minsu? Anybody in class? A cooperative is a organization where everybody owns it. It does not have one specific owner. It does not have one specific stockholder that has much more ownership than anybody else. So the shares are generally owned equally by everyone. So check into that. The other questions that I had for you is, in your research so far, what specifically are you trying to prove or teach the world? What is your maybe hypothesis or your main specific focus? Once you're finished at the end of the semester, what do you want to be known as specialists in? What did you teach? What do you hope to teach the world?
So from our research, we're actually, since now it's progressive, we focus more on the explanation of the compensation structure, but we were going to focus more about the Samsung company, but it's been really hard to find articles, Scopes article and data explaining about the compensation structure in Samsung. But what our actual goal was to find the current system of Samsung on their compensation structure of how they calculate the compensation for their employees. And then based on the, and then we would compare the data that we find with the data that we have from Apple to see, and then after comparing, we would see which one, or another company, of course, depending on our research. And then we were going to evaluate the system, seeing what are the pro and cons, and if necessary, depending on the final research, we would give recommendations to the company in case necessary, because I think since we still couldn't find enough information talking about the current system of compensation structure in Samsung, it's really hard for us. So our goal would be evaluating, the main goal would be evaluating the system from Samsung.
So you hope to be specialists in Samsung's compensation. I assume what you hope to do is identify what are the world's best compensation benchmarking practices or theoretical suggestions, and then present that to Samsung. After you show Samsung, you know what they're doing, you know what's going on with Apple, and here are some suggestions to consider. Is that the overall plan? Just going up and saying, I want to learn about Samsung's compensation. There's millions of people that ask that general question, but if you go a little bit more into detail, it would be better. Please make sure you have plans to join the Facebook group, which is facebook.com/groups/East Asian Management, because that is a group that Bonnie and Alonso and Linda are current executives of Samsung. And Bonnie specifically should be eager to talk about what you're looking for. And he also worked for Apple, so you can get quite a bit of information just from that one interaction. Have you guys followed up with those visiting professors yet?
So we weren't able to contact them yet because our plan was to contact Bonnie and Ham actually because of the topic. But we didn't want to look not ready to ask questions. So we wanted to have enough research a little bit about the topic before contacting him and asking about the structure of Samsung.
Very, very smart. Everybody should listen and follow what you just said. I have 4 more questions. The next one is, which article is your guide for replication? I saw that you showed several references, but do you have a specific article that you really like and you think your final project will replicate the same style and content of one of the published articles? So which article is your guide for replication? The reason I ask that is because your students with limited experience, some of the things you say may be quite basic. So if you guide your research on a advanced research paper and you replicate the format, the style, the focus, then when you are interacting with the companies, if you have that same advanced level focus, you will seem like very advanced level people, not young students. When you talk to Bonnie and Alonzo and Linda, they know that you're students, but when you talk to other people inside, especially inside Samsung, it's best if you don't admit you are students. It's better if you admit you are researchers, perhaps from Keimyung University, working with PhDs from around the world. That would open Samsung up to talk more freely with you. They would give you more respect. If you just say, I'm a student, I want to know how much you pay, they're probably going to hang up on you. So hopefully that helps. So if you haven't found an article, which is your guide, please make sure you clarify that to the class and show me soon. The next question was, how many articles overall have you found? Jeff Bezos is getting what, $2,500 every second we wait? You guys are lucky. My time is not that valuable. Take your time.
I think it was like around 10 or something like that in total. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't see that in your presentation. If you show that, you obviously would look much better. Did you have a chart in your presentation that showed all of your references? I saw that you actually showed a few articles, but not the final page of references. Did you have that?
I do have, I think the 10, like it was about 8 or 9. I think it's included with the 2 articles that we found for the proposal, which we presented on the 3rd week of December, but we didn't use for this presentation.
So,
but I do have the reference list, but I didn't have time to make up for all the articles that I found yet.
Great, no problem. But going forward, you should. Going forward, anytime you talk in public, you should be trying to show as many of the references that relate, like a bibliography is different than a reference list. A bibliography just shows anything related to your topic. And so the more references you can show, the more intelligent you look. You should be trying to show that. And as you get points for each article that you have, it would be better to do that. The other thing that I wanted to point out is when you are referencing, you have overlooked the proper referencing format. You need to know the APA style. So when you are using your PPT, when you're using your paper, you have to say the author's name and the year anytime you use their information, right in that slide or right in the paper paragraph. And at the end, you should have the full list of everything you've referenced, including the DOI or the website link. So,
so for example, we do have a reference list page on the last slide with the APA style, which I'm actually used to. But I was wondering if it should be included on each slide as well, because I think I was afraid it would be too crowded, like in one slide.
Well, yes, that's why the in-text referencing, which is APA in-text referencing, all you say there is just the last name of the first author and the year they wrote it. So it's just Watts 2020. And you put that in brackets, for example. And then on the last page, you'll see Watts and Jones and Kim and everybody else that were co-authors together 2020, and the name of the article, the name of the journal, and the links and stuff like that. Great, thanks. So next, obviously, my question for everybody is, what company will you target? When will you target them? When will you contact them? How specifically will you contact them? For example, what is your survey focus? Walking up to Bonnie, he is definitely a different type of person. I don't know. Maybe you could just ask, Professor Bonnie, we love that you're helping me. Our focus is on this. We found this. We've already started to make a PPT confidentially for our research. Could you tell me how much you're making. Or some other person, Mr. Lee, how much are they making? What is their level in the organization? He may tell you. It should be easier for him to tell you what somebody else is making, but he may brag about what he is earning. So I'd like to hear your opinions on that, if Samsung is your focus. Is that right? Which company and when and how specifically do you plan to contact? $2,500, $2,500, $2,500, bye-bye, $2,500, bye-bye. I'm getting old here. Marissa, I don't see you saying much. Can you answer that, please? Or not?
Sorry. No, we planned to do it as soon as possible because we want to find out more about Samsung's compensation structure in order to actually really start going into topic. Because we already found some points that could be interesting to talk about, especially for improving, but we can't really have like a base if we don't have the proper knowledge. So we have to contact him as soon as possible.
Okay, so I still didn't hear what company you do plan to contact, when and how. So it sounds like you think you're going to contact Samsung, but you don't know when or how. I'll just use that for an assumption. I would say that you should make sure you have as much information that you think Bonnie would appreciate as possible, so you can go and share this with Bonnie. I have already set up a online folder of some materials related to compensation. Contact me, I'll give you that link. I think I already shared it with the class before, so if you add more articles to that, then you might be able to just share that link for all of those research articles, especially the Harvard Business Review, since Bonnie is connected with Harvard. If you share that with them, they may really appreciate it and respect that you're helping him. Especially, you guys should all know that Harvard Business Review articles or good quality Scopus Journal articles, usually for a regular person to read them, costs anywhere from $10 to $50 just to read one story. So it could cost thousands of dollars to read one magazine. And you can get it for free through the university. So download a whole bunch of those that you think the other people may value. And since you're doing research, you can include them in the research so they can see that and get a lot of benefit from you. But hopefully that helps. The last question I had, you already answered, talking about what is your grant development. You're still going to be working on that. When you talk about grants, obviously a lot of the North American companies are perhaps easiest to apply for. You may want to say how the Korean or Vietnamese companies want to learn how best to compensate people. And that could be your grant focus. You're aware how to get those details. Just go to Google, type in any huge multinational company's name, comma, foundation, comma, grants, and it should pop up a page for where you can get those details. I can show you later in class if you have any questions. We are going through quite a lot of our class time. Any last comments before we go on to the next group?
So I want to have some comment about how we can ask the Samsung executives. I want to ask you, normally that's when we do the survey, we just focus on one type of questions for the results, right? For example, is it the open-ended questions or closed-ended questions or like Likert scale questions? Normally, from my side, just only focus in some types of questions. So maybe you can talk more about that. I'm not sure if you clear what I ask.
Have you guys planned your survey details because next week, week 7, week 8, and parts of week 9, that is when a lot of the university is basically closed just for writing the exam. So our class uses the time next week to contact and survey people. It's best when you are surveying to start by surveying like the parking lot attendant, learn from them so you sound more intelligent when you talk to a secretary or a front doorman, and then you learn from them. So when you talk to a junior worker, you sound more intelligent, and then after you talk to the junior worker, you sound more intelligent to talk to a manager, etc. So those types of details should help. Bonnie and Alonso have already indicated they'd be perfectly open to helping you. You can be pretty blunt with them. They can probably introduce you to other people. But as Ali said, try to make sure you're focused. It's best if you have a journal article that you're replicating and try to do similar details to them. Many publications, if you contact the author can send you their actually list of questions. Many articles actually list the questions that were posed related to compensation. So look at those things. Hofstede, for example, when he did his survey, he shared all of his question list and he shared the translated versions when he was surveying in many different countries. So if you're interested, I can share some of those details. It would be good to think about that going forward. Who's the next student ready to present in class? Ali, can you identify the students that need the extra marks and just call out their names and see if they're ready?
Okay.
Good, Dukin. Did I hear that you were interested in presenting something at the beginning of class today? Kyunggon Jung, did I hear that you also had something you wanted to present today?
No, Professor, I have presented the previous class, and we're still like correcting some minor mistakes, and not today.
So again, you realize that you are following your Korean style of management, which is to avoid showing any mistakes, avoid sharing anything unless it's perfect. But when you are trying to develop with international companies, showing your work is a huge advantage, even if it's not completed, even if there are problems, especially if there are problems, because when you show your work, people see you're working, not just doing nothing, and they can give you some advice and comments on how to improve. Ideally, Minsu, Felix, and Marissa would ask everybody else in class, what are your comments about how to improve this? What should change? And do you have any other articles or suggestions for this? I was waiting for them to ask me and the classmates. I have many articles related to executive compensation. Felix started talking about corporate governance compensation. I did a lot of work in my PhD related to that. There are several articles and even PPTs about it, but you didn't ask. So if you don't ask, you don't get those benefits. My point is, the more you share, the more benefit you can get. The more you ask for guangxi or help from other people, the faster you can usually develop, and the faster you have a relationship building with these other people. Ali, are you ready to identify people to call out? What about Shakabos?
We have Shehzad Hassan.
Hassan, are you ready?
Cho Yon Chang.
Yes, I'm still making it. I didn't make it yet.
Okay, next.
So we have Manonov. And
Maranov, are you here? Are you ready to share your details? So Shokabos is not ready. What about
I think Lachel, no, yes.
Javokir? Are you ready to share your details?
Fonfita, when can you present your presentation?
Our group is in the last week, so this week we can't get the more detail yet. So this week maybe not. Yeah.
Okay, in the work that you have presented last week, Fontita, you were using the Samsung website, talking about they provide life insurance, they provide dental and a fitness room, things like that. Your information was a great start. Please make sure you go into more detail, like your classmates Marissa, Felix, and Minsu. Make sure that you have good, reliable, trustworthy references to use. Usually Scopus articles. Identify one article that you're going to replicate and share that with us as soon as possible. Basic company websites, like you talked about, it's a good beginning, but they're the lowest level of reliability for doing research. So if you share that, you will get higher points. That would help you. Angara Suksana, you are in the same group. Did you find any other new articles? If you did, there's extra points for you. Lada Lichi, you are in the same group. If you found any articles that would help you. Again, Shiraz, we've invited you to talk, but I haven't heard from you yet. Javokavir Abdullav, we've invited you, but I haven't heard from you. Soji Juan, anything new from you?
Professor, I have a question for next week.
Great.
So you said next week we're going to have a, like, I saw that on schedule, like a break, so we can use the time to make this, like, send the surveys to and contact the company. Yeah. So doesn't mean we don't have the online Zoom class next week, Monday and Wednesday, right? Or do we have?
There is no regular class next week. Those are only next week and the following week. I believe it's the university policy to only have the midterm exam period. And since we do not have a midterm exam, yes, there's no Zoom. You should be using each week of our class to find a journal article, ideally. By midterm period, by now, you already have several good journal articles that are reliable. So you have some very good information. You have an idea of the company. So when you contact the company, initially you will look best just by sharing that valuable information. I know for a fact that Bonnie has a connection with Harvard. He really likes to talk about that. So if you use that folder of many Harvard articles about compensation that he does not have access to unless he pays a lot of money, he should be grateful for sharing that with you. And he already wants to sort of mentor you on this topic. So building on that should be good. He does have to make some, I believe he is supposed to make a proposal to the chairman of Samsung. And so if you start making your paper, not only would you do well in our class, not only would Bonnie be happy, but you might be able to give your presentation with Bonnie, beside Bonnie, to the chairman of Samsung. So please keep that in mind.
Thank
Maybe
you, Professor.
You're ready, you can start talking with the chairman next week. Depends how well you negotiate. Okay, it seems like people are kind of quiet. We have the class to 10:15, 3 or 4 more minutes, so we can.
I would have a question. because you said you had like experience with the remuneration reports. Can you give me there some further information to that? Because I'm really struggling finding like 70 pages, so much information that there's so much information inside, and to fill that out, it takes so much time. Do you have there some suggestion or some tips?
You want some suggestions related to the research that I did? Okay, I need to look through my files. It was several years ago, but yes, I will definitely find articles. Some of them, there are PPTs talking about exactly what I was just talking about. Yeah, keep following up. I will check, but I have a lot going on right now, so keep checking in with me each evening. Bug me until I answer your questions and send you the links. Kyung-gun Jung, your hand is up. How can we help you today?
I have a question about the article, Professor. Whether when I was searching for articles, there are like 2020, but there are like the old articles. But I was wondering if the old articles is still available. I mean, still reliable or not? Because the world is changing.
Yes, old articles. If you're talking of, you always have to be very specific. So an old article from a liar is not, but an old article in a Scopus journal, it is reliable as of that date. But if the article was published in 1960 about compensation or international best practices for compensation, then you have everything from 1960 until today that has been revised and improved. So it depends which article you're talking about. Scopus articles are always reliable at the time they are published. That's why you need to reference the time that it's published, the time that you accessed it, and the source where you got it from whenever you're referencing. Does that make sense, Mr. John?
Great, thank you. Thank you.
Felix, I don't know if you're going to be happy or not. Let me just show you. Can you see my screen? I just did a scan for some of these details, and you can see here is an article about corporate governance, CEO compensation, and firm performance. Here's another one about the same type of thing. Here's another one about CEO pay. There are many, many, many articles here. So how many do you want me to share with you?
Just all of them.
All of them. How best can I do this? I think some of my drives are going to be running out of space if I just make copies of them. I'll try to show you the links to each one. While we wait for any other students to comment, can you see these details? This one obviously is not appropriate. This is just the resume of Collier's Vietnam, and he's talking about how he set CEO pay. Let me change. And now this is just talking about CEO and compensation, and there's still a lot of articles. Are you in the Facebook group, Felix, Marissa, and are you guys in the? I think since we are, you guys are going to talk about details with Bonnie and Alonso, and you should make sure your internship is ready and recognized. I'm going to make a post here for you guys. Actually, I don't see, oops, different area. I'll put many of the links in this the Asian management group.
How can we join that group? Because we only
that currently is open. That is an open group. Probably from next week, I will close it to make it private. But right now, it's an open group. Right now, you're seeing on my screen. This is your class. The other class group. This is a private group, but the Asian management, which is not opening for some reason. Why is this not opening? Things are going slow. Let's see if this works. So facebook.com/groups/East Asian Management is the name, but I believe it's supposed to have capital. Oh, good. So that's it. So just go into Facebook/groups/East Asian Management and you can join the group now. If you guys make any post, I will reply and give you the links to many articles about compensation. Good. Any other questions from students? No? Okay. Class is finished. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank you.
Professor, I just clicked to join the, oh wait, you say it's a public group, right? I think I'm in the right group.
I think you just need to start posting, yes.
Okay then, thank
With,
you.
you just
yes.
asked to join. Mark is red. Are you guys able to get in okay?
Yes, I think so. Oh.
I see. Yes.
For me, I have to send a request to get in the group.
Sorry, what was that?
I have to make a request to get inside the group.